So a week ago, I did my first NBA Weekly Recap, and you guys responded very positively to that video. So because of that, I'm going to continue this series, as I talk about the various things throughout the league that stood out the most to me. Again, I will not be covering all 30 teams in each recap video, but just the things that stood out the most to yours truly over the last week in the NBA. So first things first, the thing that stood out the most to me is the performance of none other than Nikola Jokic. He is the best player in the NBA. I have felt this way for a while, and now I feel more confidently about this than I ever have before. This guy is performing to a level that we haven't seen since, Wilt Chamberlain? Genuinely, he's putting up the kind of numbers that Wilt Chamberlain put up in the late 60s with the 76ers. Throughout the first 10 games, the Denver Nuggets have a 7-3 record, and that's despite the fact that they are statistically one of the worst defenses in the entire league. The greatest reason for their success is the fact that the Joker is out there doing basically everything. He's averaging a career-high 29.7 points per game, and he's also chipping in a league-leading 13.7 rebounds per game and a league-leading 11.7 assists per game. You heard that right. He's averaging about 30 points per game while leading the league in rebounding and assists. On top of that, his efficiency is utterly insane, as he's hitting 56.3% of his shots, and get this, 56.2% of his three-point shots. That's not for a lack of volume either, as he's shooting a career high in three-point attempts per game. There is no way that he is going to maintain these numbers over the course of an 82-game season. But even with a significant drop-off, this is statistically one of the greatest seasons in the history of the NBA, as long as it doesn't drop off dramatically. The craziest thing about the Joker is I feel like year after year, we've been talking about how MVP voter fatigue is going to set in. It's been proven throughout the years that the voters like to get some new blood, and when the guy starts dominating the award too much, they start to build up positive narratives about other players. But he is absolutely destroying any concerns about voter fatigue whatsoever, just because he's that damn good. He just keeps getting better and better. Think about this for a second. Realistically, he should have won his 4th straight MVP last season. But we all know with Joel Embiid and the media's push to get him the award, but in reality, Jokic should have won 4 straight. And right now, he is the overwhelming favorite to win yet another MVP, which theoretically could have been his 5th straight. In the history of the NBA, no player has ever won more than 3 MVPs straight. This guy just keeps piling up awards on top of awards on top of awards. And furthermore, I really don't know what else to add. This is just pure greatness, and we all should be appreciating it while he's in his prime. Let's move to another section of the Western Conference and look at the Golden State Warriors and the Dallas Mavericks, as they had a battle that was likely the game of the year so far. What made this contest so special was rather obvious, as it was Klay Thompson's first game back in Golden State as an adversary, and he was received with a wonderful standing ovation, and I gotta give credit to the Warriors fans for that one, because considering how he went out with the 0-10 performance, it's nice to see that they're still keeping the big picture in mind and are grateful and thankful to him for all of the great years they had together. With that being said, the vibe quickly shifted when the basketball actually started. Klay played decently well, as he scored 22 points, had 4 rebounds and 3 assists on 7 of 17 shooting. But the night belonged to Steph Curry, as he scored 37 points, had 9 assists and 6 rebounds on 14 of 27 shooting. And along with that, he was clutch down the stretch, as he once again validated his Clutch Player of the Year award a couple years ago. You could just tell after some of those big shots the amount of emotion that Steph Curry was playing with. You could tell that this game was personal. According to Draymond Green, he was actually upset that Klay Thompson wasn't responding to Steph's text the night before. So a pissed off Curry took out his frustration on the basketball court. As I talked about in last week's recap video, NBA viewership is generally down, but that isn't usually the case when Steph Curry and the Warriors are playing. And because of the energy and highlights like this, that makes a whole lot of sense. Recently on this channel, I mentioned that the Warriors were the real deal, and Steph, Buddy Hield, and Draymond are executing beautifully on the court together. The Warriors then lost to the undefeated Cleveland Cavaliers, who are still undefeated, and everybody wanted to act like my comments didn't age very well. Well, here we are, and the Warriors still look fantastic with a 9-2 record. A team that's not doing so hot is out east, and that's the Milwaukee Bucks. Once again, the reputation of Darvin Ham and Doc Rivers continues to be in the toilet, as the Bucks are an extremely disappointing 4-8 on the season. And they are such a dysfunctional mess at this point that it took a 59-point performance from Giannis Antetokounmpo in order to defeat the lowly Detroit Pistons, as he finished the game with 59 points, 14 rebounds, 7 assists, and 3 blocked shots. What's crazy is even with their 4-8 record, and even with things looking as bad as they do right now, they're still only a game outside of a playoff spot in the much weaker Eastern Conference. So again, things might be all gloom and doom at the moment, but there may still be some time to right this ship. Speaking of explosive performances, we had a couple of those out of San Antonio. Victor and his San Antonio Spurs defeated the Sacramento Kings as he dropped 34 points, 14 rebounds, and 6 assists. And then in the game after that, against the Washington Wizards, he dropped a career-high 50 points, and his San Antonio Spurs are now standing at a much improved 500 record. As exciting as it is to see the significant improvement in San Antonio, a 500 record is not going to be good enough to make the playoffs in this stacked Western Conference. If they were an Eastern Conference team, then almost certainly. But hopefully, they continue to keep hitting their stride and his confidence continues to build as the season goes on. Now moving back out east, one of the craziest developments in the NBA over the last week was not about an NBA player, but actually about one of the best coaches the league has to offer, Erik Spoelstra. So basically, it was a 2-point game in overtime against the Detroit Pistons, and Miami has the lead. Immediately, the wheels start to fall off for Miami, as there was a ton of miscommunications, and they actually had 6 guys on the floor before they rushed one of their players off just before the pass was inbounded. Then there was a breakdown defensively, resulting in a lob pass that tied the game, and then Erik Spoelstra immediately responds by calling a timeout, when the Miami Heat, in fact, had no timeouts left. This resulted in a technical foul, the Detroit Pistons make the free throw, and they win the game as a result. And this entire moment was encapsulated perfectly with Jalen Rose's face on the sideline. I gotta ask you guys, there has been some pretty iconic NBA moments from players during the NBA regular season, and sometimes these moments end up being long-lasting images that we remember and that help define these players. But my question is if the same thing can happen with NBA head coaches, because I fully believe that Spoelstra is one of the best coaches the NBA has to offer. But this was a bad look, and this was a historically bad evening. And do we just chalk this up as to one bad night on Erik Spoelstra's resume? Or is this something that we're going to remember for a long time to come? Let me know in the comments if this affects the way you see Spoelstra as a head coach. Alright, so now I'm recording the second half of this audio. The first half of this video, I recorded the audio on Friday afternoon. Now I'm recording this part on Saturday afternoon, after last night's batch of NBA Cup games were played. The reason I do this in segments is because my editor is human like the rest of us, and he has to edit these videos throughout the night. So if I do all of this the night before the video has to be edited, then he's probably going to be up till 6 or 7 a.m., and that's not really fair. So again, forgive me for the audio that has some out-of-date team records and averages, but we're doing our best to update them on the screen as we go along. So the first thing I want to bring up about the NBA Cup games is, do we even care? I gotta be honest, as a Lakers fan, I really hardly care. This whole idea of an additional championship within the regular season is just odd to me. I'm all for keeping the main thing the main thing. I like the idea of 30 teams all striving for one common goal, the NBA championship. And if a team misses the playoffs, yet acts like their season was a success for things that happened in November, then to me that just seems silly. The one thing I do appreciate about these cup games is that it has raised the intensity of a lot of regular season competitions. So although the general audience might not care that much, it seems like the players do, and that is definitely a plus. First off, my Los Angeles Lakers defeated the San Antonio Spurs, thanks to 40 points from Anthony Davis and yet another triple-double for LeBron James, making that his 4th straight triple-double in 4 victories. Now people are going to critique the 8-4 Lakers, saying that their record is mostly based on the fact that they beat bad teams. And although they're not wrong when they're saying that, I actually love that as a Lakers fan. I believe a sign of a good team is beating the teams that you're supposed to beat. Last season, we struggled a lot with teams that had no business competing with LA on paper. So it's nice to see a more composed, methodical, and mature team. Again, as good as AD and LeBron are playing, I think you gotta give JJ Redick a major amount of credit. The Minnesota Timberwolves took on the Sacramento Kings, and that was an instant classic. De'Aaron Fox was absolutely unconscious from all over the court, as he erupted for 60 points on 63% shooting from the field. Up until this point, he didn't have a game this regular season where he had scored more than 32. That 60-point performance set the franchise record for the most points ever scored in a game, which surpassed Jack Twyman's 59 and DeMarcus Cousins' 56. Despite all of this, they still ended up losing the game in overtime, 130 to 126. The reason they lost is because Anthony Edwards took over down the stretch and was extremely clutch as he kept hitting big shot after big shot, including this deep dagger that basically sealed it. I was extremely happy to see this type of performance from Ant, because not only do I want to see him take his game to the next level, and not only do I want to see him continue to do Kobe and MJ-like things, but it's good to see him executing with energy late in games, because that was essentially his downfall in last year's playoffs. Hopefully this is something that he can maintain throughout the course of the regular season and the playoffs. Back out east, Cleveland continues to dominate as they defeated the Bulls 144 to 126, thanks to 37 from Donovan Mitchell and 29 from Darius Garland. With this victory, they extended their undefeated start to 14-0. Again, I still don't think we're looking at title favorites here, regardless of how dominant they've been, because they have taken advantage of a lot of easier matchups. It kind of reminds me of the Houston Rockets in 2008, when they had that massive winning streak just for it eventually to be ended and for them to be humbled by the eventual NBA champion Boston Celtics. These Cavs find themselves in a similar situation because on their schedule is the Boston Celtics on Tuesday, and that will be their next in-season tournament game, and it will be in Boston. If they win that game and extend their streak to 16 games, then screw it, I'll be on the bandwagon at that point. So now is your guys' turn. What are some things that stood out so far in the last week of this NBA season? And do you even care about the NBA Cup? I look forward to hearing your thoughts in the comment section below. Thanks for watching as always, make sure to like and subscribe for more basketball content, and I'll see you guys in the next video.